Greetings. I would like to welcome everybody. This is our social media platform that Dario and I am Meurmishvili. My friends here in Texas call me Tony. I would like to tell you that we have been on the air for several years and made more than 1,700 videos on our YouTube channel. Our broadcast originally was in Georgian, our native language, as well as in Russian, mainly targeting our neighboring countries from the Caucasus region. And I'm glad to announce that starting from today, Dario will be broadcasting also in English. We named the new podcast Geopoliticus. You know that at present Georgia, as well as Ukraine, Moldova, and the entire Caucasus is fighting for its freedom. In my opinion, it is crucial to spread out the correct and fair information because we all have common enemy. Now it's time to me to introduce our two hosts. Meurmishvili, prominent Georgian journalist, right now joining us from Washington, D.C., and Georgi Katcharava, highly demanded expert in international security, joining us from Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. So, my friends, the air is yours.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you very much, Tonika. Or should I say Tony, because you're in Texas. Thank you very much. This is a pleasure to be a co-host and to help you with launching the English language broadcast. I believe it's very important, and hopefully we will manage to get some information out to the people that may not be as tuned in some of the events that are happening, not only in Georgia but also in the region, in Eurasia, in Russia's neighboring countries. So I'm very happy to be here with Georgi, and hopefully, if you have any questions, by the way, we're always very happy to take questions and comments. So send them our way. And now I will let Georgi introduce himself, and then we'll launch right into the discussion.
I'm very grateful, Ia, for the introduction and your introductory words. And I would like to greet our audience, first of all. And I hope that our broadcast will be very interesting, not only today, but in the future as well. So, and for that reason, I would like to ask you guys to, like and subscribe to this channel. So we are also pleased to host you here.
Yep. Indeed. Subscribe, share, spread the word, and send us questions to make it as interactive with the audience as possible. So the first topic that we thought about to start this first broadcast is Georgian president's meeting with President-elect Donald Trump in Paris. In Georgia, President Trump met with many different leaders of different countries. Some over 40 leaders were present at the reopening of the Notre Dame Chapel in Paris. But I think one of those, at least from the region standpoint, one of the most important meetings was the one between Meurmishvili and Donald Trump. And the reason why it's important is that Georgia is going through this unprecedented crisis for the country that's used to demonstrations virtually every year, if not once in every 6 months, there is something big happening. People are coming out in the streets quite often, especially in the past few years. But this time, it's not just the Tbilisi streets, which is the capital of Georgia, of course, but also in other cities. There was, at one point, there were some over 40 cities, towns, villages reported to have had some sort of protest demonstrations, which is unheard of in Georgia. And I would like to say that it's probably a global news as well, where the entire country was demonstrating against something. Demonstrations are still happening in Tbilisi as we speak now, 14 consecutive days. They have not stopped. There are also demonstrations in Batumi, Kutaisi, Zugdidi. There was a major march in Rustavi, which is the second largest city of Tbilisi. So it's very important to keep in mind the situation in the country as we're talking about President Zurabishvili's meeting with President-elect Trump. The Georgian Dream is hoping that Georgia's relations with the United States will be much better after Donald Trump takes office on January 20th. But there are some questions about that. So that's one aspect that Georgi and I will try to have a discussion about and see what could be feasible for the Georgian Dream or for the Georgian opposition and President Zurabishvili. So with that overview, Georgi, would you like to add anything to the overview? I probably omitted some very important things that you would like to add.
You just mentioned all the very important aspects of what is going on in Georgia, and the crucial importance of the meeting between President Zurabishvili and President Trump. Why it is important, in my opinion, because this is a crucial moment for the country, and to have an access to incoming president, head of an administration in the United States, to have right information from the first hand, from the outgoing, but basically president of Georgia, on the events that this country is experiencing now, which are unprecedented, as you already mentioned, is a very important. And I would like also to thank probably President Macron, who was actually brokering this meeting, and he was basically present at this meeting. And we also know that today was a very interesting phone call from President Macron to, let's say, de facto ruler of Georgia, the Mr. Bidzina Ivanishvili, where he urged him, President Macron urged Mr. Ivanishvili to facilitate, the process of releasing those who were actually in the custody during all these demonstrations, and to soften the grip of the law enforcement against the demonstrators, and the peaceful demonstrators, first of all. So all these events are, of course, interconnected, and I think more to see in the coming days and weeks, probably. But also, we also have to understand that in this whole process that we are now witnessing in our country, basically, I would say that there are several milestone, dates that we have to look for, which is the first one is the 14th of December, where the ruling party intending to organize the presidential elections, and on the 29th of December, they are going to have an inaugural ceremony for the elected president. So we also have to understand that President Zurabishvili, not recognizing the results of the last parliamentary elections, she said that all the processes that we are witnessing now, I'm talking about the inaugural session of the parliament, and all the other appointments of the ministries and the prime minister, basically are illegal. And that's why she basically states that all these elections that we're facing now in December, I'm talking about presidential elections, so-called, she will not recognize it, and she will not leave her post. That creates another spin in the processes here, which we call crisis.
That's a very important point to, I'm sure our Georgian viewers and people that are monitoring Georgia closely will understand exactly what you're saying. When you're saying that President Zurabishvili is not recognizing the government as legitimate. She's not recognizing the parliament as legitimate because she came out shortly after the elections and stated that the elections were not conducted in a free and fair manner. And as the president who's overseeing the election process, so to say, she did not recognize the elections legitimate. So everything that Georgi's talking about is basically stemming from that announcement that if the elections are not legitimate, the parliament that was elected is also illegitimate. Therefore, the government that the parliament approved is illegitimate. There's another technical aspect here, which is that the president is supposed to call in the first session of the newly elected parliament, which President Zurabishvili has not done. Therefore, according to the Georgian constitution, this parliament cannot be considered as constitutional because it's omitting this very important technical step, which is for the president to call in the first session. So everything, all the illegitimacy talk that we're hearing and the discussions about it is stemming from the elections, which were conducted on October 26th of this year, highly contested. OSCE has not issued a report yet. There is a preliminary report that says that the elections were competitive, however, not free and not fair. So we'll have to wait and see what the final report says. None of the Western governments have recognized, with very minor exceptions, have recognized Georgian government or the parliament. Hungary is one of the first countries in the EU and NATO that has recognized the Georgian government, and as a very close ally of the Georgian dream at the moment. We have not seen anything coming from the EU. Washington certainly has not congratulated or recognized the elections. So Georgia is in this very, not just actual crisis that is unfolding in the streets of Tbilisi every day. Demonstrators in the streets, police in riot gear, using force, in many cases unjustified force against the demonstrators. But we also have a constitutional crisis happening. And as Georgi mentioned, on the 14th, the parliament will proceed and approve the selection of the new president, which is, by the way, a change from the previous presidential elections. According to Georgia's constitution, this time the Georgia will be switching fully to a Republican parliamentary republic, which means that the parliament, as well as the local governments and so-called electoral representatives, will be electing the president. So Salome Zurabishvili is the last, based on this constitution, the last directly elected president and nationwide, basically, person that has the country's legitimacy. And we'll see what happens in the future. So it's both a physical, financial, economic crisis for the country because the foreign direct investment has decreased tremendously in the third quarter, and we have a constitutional crisis on top of it. So again, Georgi, it's too many things that I mixed up. So if you need to clarify something in what I just talked about, please jump in.
No, actually, you are rightly pointing out that it's a complex issue here. We are in a deep political crisis that actually spreads to other fields and spheres of the life of this country, economy, societal well-being, and so I hope that it will not hit the social system of this country, but that is also possible because everything is interconnected, and we all start to feel that the mood among the people is getting more nervous because the situation is full of uncertainty, and this uncertainty actually spreads also among the business people because day before yesterday we had a big gathering in the TV of major business people and business representatives that were talking about the situation in the country, that in this kind of environment they cannot make business. And we are not talking about only the foreign direct investments, but we are talking about the already established businesses, the domestic businesses that were striving to build their enterprises for 20, 25, 30 years. And now it is not under threat, but it's always has to be mentioned that they are basically slowing down their development, and they're very concerned about this. And these are people who are providing jobs. These are people who are providing taxes to the state, etc. So these are people who are basically are moving this country ahead. And if they're concerned that this means something for the whole public, and this is not only business people, we are talking about the academics, we're talking about lawyers, we're talking about different the professional unions like doctors, etc. So everybody is expressing their own concern, and this is spreading all over society. And you rightly mentioned before that what we're witnessing now, that all major cities, towns, and settlements actually have joined the process of the protests, and people are in the street demanding justice, electoral justice, and democracy.
Yeah.
Basically, this is unprecedented for this country,
Mm.
and it's
Yeah.
important to understand.
Another thing, we sort of deviated from Trump Zurabishvili meeting. Let's get back to that in a second. But we have to also mention that this massive demonstrations where hundreds of tens of thousands, we don't know, 300,000 people maybe countrywide. Again, the numbers, I could be off with the numbers, but estimation is that Tbilisi had over 200,000 people demonstrating on some days. So it's a very significant number of people. Georgia itself is about 3.2 million people. So if you take into account, it's like almost 10% of the country that's out in the streets. That's very significant. And we also, another point to sort of educational for people that may not be following Georgia that closely, is that these demonstrations have no political leadership, or there is nobody, no one entity that organizes. They are completely self-organized, mainly by the students and youth groups. Most people that are sort of leading this in different ways. Again, there is no leader of the movement, but these people are Generation Z representatives, which were very active and vocal during the March demonstrations when the Georgian government first introduced the foreign agents law in Georgia. So that's another point to mention, that these are not organized demonstrators, which in some cases causes a question or prompts a question. Okay, if they're not organized, how do they communicate what the demands or what the goals of the demonstrations are? But now we're hearing the two major demands of the demonstrators. One is immediate release of all the people detained by the authorities during this past 2 weeks. And we're talking about some 500 people so far. Again, a very high number for a small country like Georgia. And the second one is scheduling free and fair new elections in Georgia. So we'll see where those demands go. We'll see if, especially after President Macron's conversation with Bidzina Ivanishvili, will yield to any results, and if there will be any sort of opening for new elections. That remains to be seen. But unless you want to add something to that, Georgi, let's talk very
No,
briefly about Trump.
yeah, I just want to briefly, yes, I just want to briefly highlight my opinion about the meeting of President Trump and Zurabishvili. I think from the body language that we are all seeing in this during this meeting, there was short video, but quite telling video. Telling video in terms of both presidents were, they were happy to talk to each other first. They were smiling, and I think there was a very clear understanding between them. And third party, which was President Macron, he was also very happy and smiley. So I think it was some chemistry between them in this conversation, and if we can say it, I think they understood each other very well. And that's what I read from the body language and the gestures and the movements that they pose there.
Mm.
Well, what results it will yield for us and for the United States and the relationship between these two countries, it remains to be seen, of course, in the future. But I have a positive attitude and I have a positive expectations, at least. That's my
Yeah.
personal one. I'm not under any influence, or I don't want to influence anyone. But